Hello everyone, welcome to our course International Organization and Global Governance. Chapter 3, Institutional Approaches to International Organization and Global Governance. Let's start with learning objectives. At the end of this chapter, you will be able to describe liberal institutionalism, you can identify international regimes, you can examine multilateralism and internet governance, and finally, you will be able to investigate the role of epistemic communities in managing global commons. This chapter includes 4 main titles: liberal institutionalism, international regimes, multilateralism and internet governance, epistemic communities, and global governance. Let's start with liberal institutionalism. There are some basic assumptions of liberal approach regarding the international system. So, first of all, liberals emphasize the international cooperations, and for liberal states are rational actors which try to maximize rational actors which behave in a strategic calculation, and international organizations are also important actors in the international system, and there are significant concepts for liberalism which we should pay attention while considering international issues such as world society, global governance, and interdependence. Liberal institutionalism, on the other hand, consider the positive role international institutions and global governance in managing world affairs. They say that these international organizations are instrumental, are key actors in ending wars and conflicts. Neoliberal institutionalism also consider that states are interdependent actors. They are interdependent each other, so they depend on other states. They say that they behave by rational and strategic calculation. And finally, neoliberal institutionalism also argues that institutions are not secondary, but they play substantial roles in international relations. As for international regimes, this term, the concept of international regime was first introduced by John Ruggie. And what is the definition of international regimes? What does it mean? It means that it refers to a set of mutual expectations, rules, regulations, plans, organizational energies, and financial commitments which have been accepted by a group of states. So there are 4 components of international regimes. The first one is principles, the second one norms, the third rules, and finally the final component of international regimes are decision-making procedures. And there are also different schools of theories regarding international regimes. The first one is the structural school, which focuses on the power, on the role of power in creation of in creation and in sustaining international regimes. The second one is the institutional school. It argues that the international regimes achieve some sort of social optimal among states. And finally, cognitive schools, which argues that international regimes are social entities, so they emphasize the role of identity and the role of some sort of constructivist ideas, elements, or themes regarding international regimes. As for multilateralism and internet governance, so if we define a global governance, first of all, global governance is an international rule-based framework. It includes actors creating collective solutions in order to deal with common problems, and it involves multiple types of actors, such as multinational corporations, international organizations, international non-governmental organizations, or local non-governmental organizations, and states, individuals, so on. What is internet governance? Internet governance is a new concept. It's very similar to global governance, but it's specifically focused on the internet. And it involves many actors, it involves many issues, procedures, mechanisms, and instruments. And there are 5 types of internet governance. The first one is spontaneous cyberspace model. The third one, transnational institutions and organizational model. The third one, the internet architecture and code model. The fourth one, the national government and law model. And finally, the final model of type of internet governance is the market regulation and economics. Our final topic in this chapter is epistemic communities and global governance. Epistemic community is a concept which gained currency in the 80s as a part of constructivist theory. First, it was developed by Peter Haas, and Peter Haas that argued that there are some sort of epistemic communities, so which means policy networks formed by scientists, technical experts, international organizations having competence and specialization in a particular issue area. There is another concept which we should consider: global commons. These are natural resources and areas outside national jurisdiction. According to this concept, all nations have legal access to these natural resources and areas which are outside the national jurisdiction. These are such as Antarctica, the oceans, the atmosphere, and the space. These are the parts of global commons. So in this chapter, first we discussed the definition of liberal institutionalism, the approach of liberal institutionalism, and then we identified international regimes. We discussed the concept of international regimes, and then we considered multilateralism and internet governance, and finally we investigated the role of the epistemic communities and global commons in international relations. But I should remind you that this is not a primary learning material for you, so you should go and read your book very closely, and also you should consult with other learning materials that you can find on Anadolu E-Kampüs. Thank you very much for joining us today.